and videos.
At Jubilee at gbnews.uk.
Come and celebrate with us.
On GB News, the People's Channel.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV,
On radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello and welcome to The Briefing with me, Gloria De Piero. As food gets more expensive, we'll ask the boss of Iceland how you can keep costs down. Former Conservative leader Sir Ian Duncan-Smith remembers giving the speech for the Queen's Golden Jubilee way back in 2002 in Parliament. He'll join us. And the Conservative MP Jonathan Gullis opens up to me about his struggles with his mental health, which began when he was bullied at secondary school. But first, here is your news.
It's 1 minute past 12. I'm Rosie Wright, keeping you up to date on GB News. A senior Ukrainian official says the latest European sanctions on Russia are not enough. The EU agreed last night to cut 90% of oil imports from Russia by the end of this year. 10% of the imports will temporarily be exempt from the ban so that Hungary, Slovakia and the Czech Republic will still have access to Russian oil. European Commission Chief Ursula von der Leyen says the EU plans to fully cut all imports in the near future.
Now left over is around about 10 or 11% that are covered by the southern Družba. And indeed, here we have agreed this is for the moment being exempted. We have agreed to that the Council will revert to the topic as soon as possible in one way or the other. So this is a topic where we'll come back to and where we will still have to work on. But it is a big step forward, what we did today.
The Conservative MP Andrea Lensub says the unacceptable failings of leadership found in Sue Gray's Partygate report cannot be tolerated and are the responsibility of the Prime Minister. Writing to her constituents, the former minister said it's extremely unlikely that senior leaders were unaware of what was going on in Number 10. She says each Conservative MP must now decide on the right course of action that will restore confidence in our government. 3 Conservative MPs have openly called for Mr Johnson to resign following Sue Gray's report. Now, GB News has been told that plans to send hundreds of asylum seekers to a former RAF base in North Yorkshire are being delayed amid a legal challenge. Well, our Home and Security editor Mark White's been investigating and is live at the base now. Mark, what's happened?
Well, it's not quite a victory yet for the villagers here in Linton on Ouse in North Yorkshire, but it is a pause on sending asylum seekers to this base temporarily. Now, we're told that it is a mix of a legal challenge that is being mounted by the local authority in this area and also some logistical issues as well. That means the first of those asylum seekers due to arrive this week will not be arriving for a while at least. Now, the Home Office have issued a statement in which they are suggesting that this is very much still their ambition. They say, as we continue to work on the plan for the Asylum Reception Centre in Linton on Ouse, which will be self-sufficient as possible, we continue to listen to community feedback. We maintain the site is urgently needed to provide essential asylum accommodation and will assist with the end of the use of asylum seekers using hotels, which is costing £5 million a day to the UK taxpayer. So those plans on hold for the moment, but not yet a victory for the villagers here in Linton on Ouse.
Mark, live from Linton on Ouse. Appreciate your time. Thank you. Now, rape victims are being asked to hand over too much personal data despite a government pledge to overhaul how cases are investigated. That's the analysis of the UK's independent regulator for data protection, who say excessive scrutiny of those who report rape means they feel they're being treated as suspects. The Information Commissioner says digital strip searches in which victims' phones are seized for analysis must stop if police want more people to report attacks. More than 1 in 10 people have skipped meals due to rising food prices. 8% of us have prioritised meals for other family members. The consumer group Which says surging living costs mean 57% of us are being forced to make adjustments, including cutting back on essentials, taking out loans or borrowing from family and friends. They also found around 2 million households have missed a housing bill, a credit card or a loan payment. Flight cancellations are continuing to hit holidaygoers, coinciding with this week's school half-term and, of course, the long Jubilee bank holiday weekend. Easyjet and British Airways are cancelling flights every day, while passengers at airports like Heathrow, Gatwick, Manchester and Bristol are reporting long delays. Well, the aviation industry is suffering from staff shortages after thousands of people were let go during the pandemic. The Labour MP, Lewis Haigh, says the delays are the government's fault.
Look, the government had been warned many months ago that losing skilled workers from the aviation industry would cause significant delays when people started going back on holiday. They knew that airports did not have the staff for security, for ground control, for cabin crew, and they knew that people would be going on holiday over the half term. So it's simply not good enough that people are having to wait hours and hours to get through security, and in some instances missing their flights and their holidays entirely.
This is GB News. We'll have more as it happens. Now let's head back to the briefing with Gloria.
Coming up this hour on the briefing, we've all noticed our food bills going up, and it's hurting those on low incomes hardest. I'll ask the Iceland boss, Richard Walker, what's going up most and for tips on how to buy smartly and keep more of your money. And more Tory MPs are saying the Prime Minister should go. But what do the people who really matter think? You, the voters. Our Yorkshire reporter has been testing the temperature in Wakefield ahead of the by-election next month. Former Conservative leader Sir Ian Duncan-Smith joins me, and in Jubilee Week he'll tell me about making a speech for the Queen's Golden Jubilee, which he did back in Parliament. And I have an incredibly brave and honest interview with the Conservative MP for Stoke-on-Trent North, Jonathan Gullis. He struggled with his mental health since he was bullied at secondary school and even planned the place where he would take his own life. So everything seems to be getting dearer, and of course it hits those with the least money the hardest. To discuss how households can shop wisely and get more for their money is the Managing Director of Iceland, Richard Walker. Richard, good to see you. Welcome to the channel and welcome to the show.
Hi, Gloria.
So we know from the statistics that were published yesterday by the Office of National Statistics that the cheapest ranges of, for example, pasta up by 50%, the price of a loaf of value brand bread up by more than 16%, cheapest rice by 15%, mince up by 16%. Are you, as a sort of a supermarket that targets those on tight budgets, are you able to hold down some prices below some of those percentage increases?
Yeah, we are. We're investing in certain categories and value ranges that are of particular importance to our customers. So we've committed to, excuse the pun, but to freeze all of our £1 frozen lines to the end of the year. And that's a conscious investment by us. We were making about 25% margin on that. Now it's a loss leader. So it's a massive investment by the business over a long period of time. But we know how important those products are to our customers so that ultimately they can help feed their families. We're also doing a range of kind of more tactical and short-term measures and targeted measures. Today and every Tuesday, we're giving 10% off to anyone who's over the age of 60 who comes into our shops, because we're seeing that pensioner poverty is a real issue out there. We've also dropped the threshold of our home delivery service as well, because a lot of our customers don't want to spend the fuel to drive into town centres and would rather take advantage of that free home delivery service. So we're trying to do what we can where we can, but it is very difficult with all of those inflationary pressures that you've just talked through.
And if we think about staples like pasta or bread, which is a staple, which ordinarily would help you stay within a budget, do you have any advice on alternative staples which are not going up in price?
The reality is, there's price pressures on everything. Some product categories more so because of rising input costs or a scarcity of inputs. By that, I'm talking about wheat, which is obviously affecting the price of bread. 30% of the world's wheat comes from Russia and the Ukraine. So obviously that supply has shortened, and that's why you're seeing the price of loaves of bread go up. But actually, indirectly, it also affects the price of mince that you mentioned and chicken, because wheat is a constituency in animal feed. So the price of feed is going up. Things like milk have gone up quite a lot as well because of labour shortages, because of fuel costs to transport it around, because of a lack of fertiliser to put on the fields, fertiliser coming from Russia, of course. So it's difficult to avoid. We are seeing some interesting trends. People are switching more and more to frozen food. I would say that, but it's a way of saving money, eliminating food waste. And that's not just in our business, that's across the UK market. And we're seeing people obviously trade down to the best value products possible and really taking advantage of any deals that we've got.
Days at the moment, and those holidays, they add an extra pressure point, particularly for those children who are in receipt of free school meals. Basically, mums and dads, they've got to find another meal. Now, the government does have a scheme. They give cash to local authorities to help those in receipt of free school meals during the school holidays. Does that work well enough in your view?
I think it can be improved. It's a good scheme. It will help fill the stopgap, if you like, between those that are having to make choices between heating and eating. So it's of absolute importance and value to some of our customers, for sure. I think maybe it could be administered better. As you said, it's run by local authorities. Maybe it could be more centrally controlled and administered, which might lead to a higher take-up. Interestingly, there are other government initiatives and schemes out there which are great, but there's low awareness and the take-up is very low. Healthy Start vouchers, for example, which applies to pregnant mums or kids under certain age brackets, where they can get free healthy foods like milk and vegetables paid for by the government. But actually every year there's tens of millions of pounds of unclaimed credit just because people don't know about it. So we're trying to work with government. We're advertising this Healthy Start voucher scheme on all of our milk bottles. So that's 90 million milk bottles a year. Hopefully when families are sat around the breakfast table and they see it, they can scan the QR code, learn more about it, and just access the money that's out there for them, because they certainly need it at the moment.
We all know times are tough. Have you seen an increase in shoplifting for food in your stores?
Yeah, we have. yes, we have shoplifting and violent incidents. I look at the report every Monday of violent incidents. That they are on the rise. Unfortunately, it's a fact of life in many of the communities that we serve. We do what we can. We pay for security, but unfortunately we can't afford to do that in every store every hour of the day. So yeah, it is a real issue. As a shopkeeper, I'm always pushing for more police intervention. People often think shoplifting is a victimless crime, but actually our staff are on the front line of this and having to deal with some pretty unpleasant characters sometimes. But then there's the other side of it, which is just struggling families. And some of the rise in shoplifting will be just as a result of not malicious or vindictive intent, but people who are just struggling to feed their families, because some of our customers might only have 25 quid a week to spend on food. And therefore there is very little to go around and spare when you've got rising electricity bills, energy bills, fuel costs, etc., etc.
Okay. Final point, the Prime Minister has announced his plans to bring back imperial measures, reintroducing measures in pounds and ounces. The British Retail Consortium have said today that that's a distraction from the problems facing the country. What's your view?
Yeah, it's a nice idea, but I am inclined to agree with the BRC. I think it probably is a bit of a distraction at the moment. If you think about it, we've got a cost of living crisis. As retailers, we need to be laser focused and work day and night on just delivering the best possible value for our customers. And actually, on top of it being potentially a distraction for business, it could be confusing for customers. And when people are very mindful of counting every penny, we can't confuse them at the moment either. So it's probably, in my view, not the best timing.
Richard Walker, really enjoyed our chat. Thank you for joining us and hope to see you again. Thank you.
Likewise, thanks.
With reports of rising discontent with the Prime Minister among his own Conservative MPs and a possible vote of no confidence on the horizon, Boris Johnson faces further pressure with a double electoral test next month. There's a Tiverton and Honiton by-election after the resignation of so-called Porn MP Neil Parish, and in Wakefield, a historically Labour seat now being defended by the Conservatives after the sitting MP was sent to jail. Our Yorkshire and Humber reporter Anna Riley is in Wakefield. Anna.
Good afternoon, Gloria. Yes, this by-election here in Wakefield will be held on the 23rd of June, and it was sparked when former Conservative MP Imran Khan had to stand down after being jailed for 18 months for sexually assaulting a 15-year-old boy. Now, this West Yorkshire constituency, it had a Tory majority of only 3,358 seats after having turned blue for the first time in 87 years in that 2019 election. So it was a big swing towards Conservatives from being a traditional red wall seat here in terms of Labour. Now, the odds are on in this by-election that Labour are set to win, but I've been out on the streets of Wakefield speaking to constituents here to find out how they're voting or if they're even going to vote at all. And this is what they had to say.
I won't vote this time, and I can't remember who I voted for last time.
Labour.
Labour.
And why Labour?
I've always voted Labour, look.
As parents have always voted
I'm a reminder, and I've always voted Labour.
So... you don't want to trust now, do you? The last time in the one for the MP, I voted Conservative.
And why was that?
Well, because I wanted to come out of the European Union.
And this time round, what will it be?
Well, it definitely won't be the Conservatives.
How come?
Well, because I just think that how they've carried on is not right at all. And they haven't been truthful.
No. How come?
Just don't want
We don't trust
them.
Don't trust no man.
No.
No party at all?
None. Well, Labour last time.
And this time round?
Labour again.
And why is that?
We're working class people, we never vote anything else. We certainly won't vote for Tories at this moment in time.
And why is that? Partygate?
Partygate.
Everything.
Yeah, well, just Boris Johnson's a complete nightmare.
Not vote for liars.
I've never voted.
And why is that?
Because they're all bad at each other. That's it, really. That's why.
And this time round, you won't change your mind?
No.
No problem.
No.
And what do you think to the current government? You know, you said they're all as bad as each other.
Well, they're a joke, aren't they? You know what I mean? I mean, doing what, you know, they're supposed to have made the laws up and everybody else trying to follow them, and they were partying. It's disgusting, isn't it, really?
Didn't vote last time round, and I definitely won't vote this time round.
How did you vote last time round?
Labour?
And how about this time? What will you vote?
Good question. I will staunchly vote Labour, but I'm not very happy what's happened over the last 30 years.
I'm not sure. I haven't really, had time to think about it. Yeah, I've been quite busy, but, I'll have a think and we'll see what happens.
So, mixed responses there, but the majority of people either being apathetic and just saying they're not going to vote, Partygate being part of that, or people saying they're going to go out and vote Labour. Two people did tell me that they would vote Conservative as well, but the majority there, either Labour or not voting at all. Let's see what happens on June the 23rd.
Absolutely, Anna. Thanks so much for bringing us that report. Thank you. Well, there are 15 candidates standing in Wakefield. They are Nadeem Ahmed for the Conservatives, Akef Akbar, who's independent, Paul Bickerdike from the Christian People's Alliance, Mick Dodgson of the Freedom Alliance, Jada Franson, an independent, Jordan Gaskell for the UK Independence Party, David Hurdson of the Yorkshire Party, Therese Hurst from the English Democrats, Christopher Jones from the Northern Independence Party, Simon Lightwood for Labour, Jamie Needle from the Liberal Democrats, Ash Routh of the Green Party, Ashley Simon from Britain First, Sir Archibald Stanton, Earl Eaton from the official Monster Raving Loony Party, and Chris Walsh from Reform UK. After the break, I will be joined by Sir Ian Duncan-Smith as we head to the week of the Platinum Jubilee celebrations. Back in a moment.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV,
On radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
we're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Our democracy owes much to her instinctive understanding of her role and her deep love of the country. These were the words Ian Duncan-Smith said to the House of Commons during the Golden Jubilee tribute to Her Majesty 20 years ago. Well, I'm now joined by Sir Ian Duncan-Smith. Good to see you, as ever. Just tell us why you chose those words for the Golden Jubilee tribute in Parliament.
Afternoon, Gloria. At the time, I was celebrating what was, in a way, a remarkable reign at that point, and that was almost 2 decades ago. But the reality is that she has seen difficult times. You know, when you think of her span of being the monarch, she herself was perhaps almost, or is, the last link directly with the Second World War of almost any, I think, of any head of state now in existence in the globe. And as a result of that, she has covered just a range of difficult times, bad times and good times, her own family issues, you know, that were on public display everywhere, the tragic death of Diana, Princess of Wales, the issues over divorce and separation, the things that families have gone through. She's had to live those through on a canvas that nobody else is able to do, and in the goldfish bowl. And throughout, her dignity, her sense of place, her love for her country is very clear, and her deep, deep faith, which sustains her, I think make her a remarkable figure in almost any walk of life, but certainly as monarch.
Do you have any personal stories you can share with us about your own interactions with the Queen?
Well, I've met her as a result on a number of occasions. She has, I think, a remarkably good sense of humour, and it comes out in sometimes quite bizarre ways, or moments when you're not expecting it. Particularly when Prince Philip was around, he himself was invariably able to have a dig at politicians whom he had a disregard for in the way that generation did from the war. I have 2 little stories. One is of Prince Philip, actually, funny enough, and I was Secretary of State for Work and Pensions, and we were waiting in line when she was coming down to do awards for the civil servants. And there was a few politicians standing there. And as we were in line, he came down the line. For some reason, Matt Hancock was slightly to my right, and a couple of others. And Matt was clearly wanting to make light of it. She'd gone past, and Prince Philip came past him and said, "What do you do?" And he said, "I look after Britain's nuclear submarines." And then he paused and said, "Of course, I know nothing at all about them." And Prince Philip hooted and then said, "How typical of politicians, in charge of something they know absolutely nothing about." And walked off down the line, which I don't think was the reaction that Matt Hancock was hoping to get. And the other one was when I had had to step down as leader, as a number of leaders following me have managed to find out at some point. I had to go and pay a departing call on Her Majesty in her sitting room. And we'd had a rough old time and various accusations going on, which all turned out to be incorrect. But that notwithstanding, she was very sympathetic. We sat there, we talked for a little while, and she said she was sorry to hear of all of this. And I said, "Oh, well, never mind, Her Majesty, nobody died and I'm still here." And then she hooted with laughter, suddenly burst out laughing, and then suddenly looked at me and stopped, thinking maybe it wasn't a joke. There was a moment when she kind of froze, looking back at me, and then I smiled and laughed, and then she carried on laughing. But her immediate sense that there was a joke took place, and she laughed at it. And you can see this endlessly. Her sense of humour comes out again. So she's a very balanced individual.
You have enriched our programme by sharing those anecdotes. Thank you. I'm sure everyone would agree. Perhaps you in particular, the Jubilee celebrations must not be overshadowed by talk of a leadership contest. Should colleagues, in your view, hold off the public criticisms and announcements of writing letters till after the weekend of celebrations?
Well, the polling tells me that the public is sick and tired of this, and I don't blame them, because I think everybody is. Doesn't take anything away from the issue. It was shocking. What happened in Downing Street, and we discovered the Sue Gray report, was a sort of collapse, really, in structure and discipline on civil servants as well as in the politicians. But this is her week. This is Her Majesty's week. This is a remarkable period. No other monarch has reigned as long as this, and in many senses seen as many difficulties as this, and gone through personal tragedies herself, even including of course, a year ago when her beloved husband, Prince Philip, died, and she was unable to say farewell in the normal manner, sitting alone on those benches. Who can forget that? Frankly, it was poignant. But I say to my colleagues, you don't always have to answer journalists. You can just say, I've nothing to say, and wait, because this is her week, and I'd rather that we focused on her and the lessons that she's given us, which are of discipline, structure, and an absolute dedication to their country, which myself and many of my colleagues could at least bear in mind as we go ahead. And let this be a celebration of her and not a reminder of what feet of clay politicians have.
Final question. As someone who was subject to a vote of no confidence, you referred to it yourself, and you're a Conservative Party leader, and you can be as brief as you like. Do you have any advice for the Prime Minister who could be facing the same?
Well, the only thing you can do is to get on and try and make what you do relevant and try and persuade people, if you don't want, that you are actually making change, you're getting things done. There is a real sense that we face this crisis over the cost of living, which is affecting them. The Chancellor's come up with a lot of money, which is very helpful. I think we need to lower the burden of taxation on the lower earners in UK yet. So there's lots to be done. There's regulatory change now he's left the EU. He's got a whole basket of things he can do. The trick is get on with it. Focus on the job. It's such a privilege to be Prime Minister, regardless of whether you're in trouble with your colleagues or not. It is an utter privilege to serve, and it's a very, very distinct privilege to be Prime Minister, which comes to very few people. So use it.
Sir Ian Duncan-Smith, it's always a pleasure to get your insights. Thanks for your time today.
Thanks, Gloria.
After the break, I have a very special and moving interview with the Conservative MP, Jonathan Gullis. He opened up about his mental health struggles, having suicidal thoughts and self-harming. First, it is the news with Rosie.
Good afternoon, it's 12:30. I'm Rosie Wright, keeping you up to date on GB News. A senior Ukrainian official says the latest European sanctions on Russia are not enough. The EU agreed last night to cut 90% of oil imports from Russia by the end of this year. 10% of those imports will temporarily be exempt from the ban, so that Hungary, Slovakia and the Czech Republic will still have access to Russian oil. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen says the EU does plan to fully cut off all imports in the near future.
Now left over is around about 10 or 11% that are covered by the southern DUSHPA. And indeed, here we have agreed this is for the moment being exempted. We have agreed to that the Council will revert to the topic as soon as possible in one way or the other. So this is a topic where we'll come back to and where we will still have to work on. But it is a big step forward, what we did today.
Conservative MP Andrea Leadsom says the unacceptable failings of leadership found in Sue Gray's Partygate report cannot be tolerated and are the responsibility of the Prime Minister. In a letter to her constituents, the former minister said each Conservative MP must now decide on the right course of action that will restore confidence in our government. It comes after 3 Conservative MPs openly called for Mr Johnson to resign following Sue Gray's report. Troops have conducted Jubilee rehearsals in central London ahead of Sunday's Platinum pageant. Service personnel from the Royal Navy, British Army and Royal Air Force marched this morning one final time for preparations before this weekend's celebrations. On your TV, online and DAB+ radio, this is GB News. Stay with us. The Briefing and Gloria will be back in a moment.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV,
on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
we're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Now, it's time for the latest in my series of very special interviews with MPs where we go behind the politics and get to know the real person. Jonathan Gullis, Conservative MP for Stoke-on-Trent North, opens up in a moving interview where he shares his experiences of being bullied, how that affected his mental health and self-harm too. Jonathan Gullis, we've been trying to get this interview for a while. I'm really pleased that we're going to do that today because you've been very brave in speaking out about your own mental health, and so the bulk of this interview will be to focus on that. You were the victim of bullying when you were a teenager. Can you tell me the nature of that bullying?
So it started off with name calling and teasing. And there were times with some kids it got quite physical, but the main issue was just the isolation within the school, really, kind of being ostracised from my peers, constantly worrying about the small group of friends I did have, whether or not I'd be socially acceptable to be around. And it went on for a long time. And I suppose it took a long time for me to start wanting to talk about it. It created a lot of anger and a lot of depression as well over time, and constantly wanting to try and be part of the in crowd and probably playing up more than I should have done. And I remember my mum sort of worrying about my behaviour because, you know, I was a reasonably bright kid, I'd like to think, but I was playing up in lessons or outside of the classroom.
To fit in.
To try and fit in, to try and sort of divert away from the nature of what the bullying was. And this constant want to be sort of accepted by my peers and never actually feeling like I achieved that, yeah, it took a toll on me.
You said it went on for a long time. Roughly what age to what age?
Probably from year 7, so 11, 12, up to 14, 15 years old, until I sort of eventually decided that, well, I snapped and eventually had to start opening up to my family about what was going on.
Did the school sort it out when you did open up?
The school were good in some ways. I remember my dad being really angry with the school because he felt that signs were there and they were missed. I had opened up with the chaplain at the school I attended, sort of right before I opened up with my family, and that was really helpful, finally having someone to talk to. And I remember she was one of the kindest ladies. She had her own battles with her own physical health. She had actually MS. And so we ended up sort of talking about the vulnerability, of one another, and it was nice to actually feel that you had someone to lean on and go to. But yeah, I must say, I thought that the school was okay. The school was okay. I mean, it never really it did die down when the school intervened, but it was always sort of there quietly in the background.
It's an awfully long period of time to go through that, and it led you to self-harm.
Yeah. mostly cutting in places that wouldn't be easy to be seen. A couple of times overdosed on tablets and stuff like that. Not as many as I, would need to obviously cause myself, kill me, but enough to sort of realise I was in a really bad place. Near where I grew up in Alderminster, there's like a country walk that the family used to do as a family all the time, and there's this one particular spot that I talked about in an article that I sort of planned that would be the place I would eventually take my life. Far enough out of the way that a stranger wouldn't stumble across it. I was going to give the sort of police advance notice, but knowing that by the time they'd arrive on the scene, it would be too late. Enough that my family wouldn't come across my body. But I suppose, for me, I'm my father's only son. My grandma and granddad on my dad's side, I'm their only grandchild. I just, that was a reason to live, as well as obviously my mum, my stepdad, who I call dad as well, confusingly for people, and my brother. But yeah, I just knew the trauma that would leave to my family, and I didn't think that was fair on them. And I'm thankful for that, because I have a very loving family. So because of them, I was able to, avoid doing the worst thing possible.
This is while you're at school, you're thinking of taking your own life?
Yeah, pre-GCSEs.
How long did the self-harming continue for?
It's probably a couple of months, not too long. I did a lot of sport, so in and out of changing rooms a lot. I was always mindful that it might be visible, so I was just mindful of the fact of not trying to go down that road, and also scared, to be quite honest with you, but if I did go down the road, how far it would go. You could read things online and sort of hear other stories or TV dramas, learning about this stuff. So I was mindful of the fact that I didn't want that to become me. I didn't want to mark my body where I'd always see something that I would be ashamed of. So I fought it pretty hard for as long as I could do.
When was the last time you self-harmed?
So it was, I think I said this in the Stoke Sentinel, it was not long before the general election, not long sort of after I got selected as a candidate. A lot of pressure, working full-time, trying to be a parliamentary candidate. My mental health slowly deteriorated around my weight, I think. I comfort eat a lot, which is bad, a lot of sugar and carbohydrates and all the stuff you're not meant to shove in your body all at once. And so I was starting to hate who I was because of how I looked. I wasn't opening up enough with people around me to sort of share my fears, my concerns, my stress, my anxieties. And it's a sort of telltale sign with when I know I'm going to a dark place that I isolate myself and I put on a facade that everything's fine and I'm okay. But actually, I just needed someone to reach out for. And I suppose I was scared to talk to my mum and dad about it. Not because I couldn't, but because I didn't want them to worry about me. And also partly because you want to think you're fixed. You want to think that you get through it. And actually what I've learned to accept is that you never are fixed. And actually you shouldn't look to be fixed. What you learn to do is cope with the pressures of life and cope with the ups and the downs that come with it and handle those moods. I'm very lucky now. I've got a fantastic partner in Nikita who's so supportive. I've got two amazing children, 2 under 2, which believe me takes its strain, Amelia and William, but I just love them to death and that's my motivation. And I've got, I should say, the 2 dogs, Bella and Bailey. Who,
they'll never know if you didn't mention them.
I know, they'll never know, but my family is my absolute drive for everything, regardless of whether I'm a member of Parliament or not. That will always be the thing that keeps me grounded, keeps me humble, keeps me in check of myself, and knowing that I've got Nikita whenever I'm needing that person to reach out to is a lifesaver, quite literally.
So, things that can help when one is struggling with their mental health. Seeing a psychiatrist, there's medication, there's counselling. You saw a psychiatrist when you were a teenager?
I was extremely lucky. Unlike what the situation is out there now, I went to my GP and within a matter of weeks I was in front of a psychiatrist, had some really intensive cognitive therapy, which was brilliant for me. I couldn't praise the NHS more in the service that I got and the support I got to get me out of that rut that I was in. I had some difficult times later in life when I was offered medication, which I took. It just didn't work for me. I felt worse, if anything, actually, on the medication. And so about a month, I just packed it in. And I did stay in touch with my GP about sort of how it was going, and I did persevere, but I was getting scared. I was actually getting more and more depressed. And I remember, like, I lived in this place where you could see a bridge over a canal, and those dark thoughts about that tree in the middle of the countryside sort of started to link those two ideas together. So I came off the medication, got myself some cognitive therapy again, which was really helpful. And look, I was lucky. I was on a salary as a teacher that was much more than the national average, and so I was able to pay for that private therapy, and I still have therapy now. I'm not ashamed of that. I still have a really good therapist that I do virtual calls with once a week, just to literally talk about the stress of this job and balancing life with my family and trying to obviously be a proactive constituency MP and getting to and from London all the time, being away from the kids. You know this, Gloria, you've been a member of Parliament yourself. It puts a lot of pressure, so it's just good for me to have someone to talk to. But again, I'm lucky that I'm in a financial situation to do that, and what breaks my heart is there's a lot of people who aren't in that situation, which is why, as you know, I'm leading that No Time to Wait campaign with my good friend James Starkey, who you've interviewed, because we want to make sure that we get a mental health nurse in every GP surgery, because they estimate now 40% of appointments for GPs are mental health related. So if that mental health nurse is there to triage, and sometimes it's just emotional resilience, sometimes just having someone to talk to and get things off your chest that's not your family, not your friends, not going to judge you, and not going to push back and question. And so, if we crack that nut, I think we'll go a long way to sort of helping, but it's not the silver bullet, obviously.
So you speak to a psychiatrist
once a week.
Once a week. How long has that been for?
Probably about 3 months now.
3 months.
3 months. Yeah, just, I suppose with lockdown, my mental health was quite badly affected. It wasn't until towards the end of lockdown I started to realise how much I resented having to just be kept inside my home and, just wanting to make sure that I was trying to support these people and seeing the emails that were coming in, the pressure of people were under, and tragically people losing loved ones. It broke your heart on a daily basis, and feeling like, am I doing enough? Being a new MP, not really knowing the system and having to learn the system whilst also trying to help people through an unprecedented time, put some pressure. Then having Amelia born in August 2020, and then William was born in February of this year. So, that I just felt that it was just good for me to find someone just to sort of let some steam off every now and again and have a chat.
Were you at the birth of Amelia in
I was very lucky that in the hospital I had to wear a face mask the entire time. That was quite frustrating because I've got a beard, so it gets quite itchy under there.
But thankfully you
But
were
thankfully I
able
was, yeah, I was lucky. She did have to stay in because she, for antibiotics, as did Nikita, and I was under the rule where it was 1 hour a day. That was really difficult, only being able to see my firstborn and my newborn 1 hour a day for 5 days, not knowing or hearing anything from the doctor, nurse, having to rely on Nikita to feed back, but she's not a doctor or nurse, she's a teacher. So, things that she was being told, she necessarily wouldn't always relay perfectly to me, and because I was being such a warrior, I think she got quite frustrated at times with me. So, yeah, that was really difficult.
I'm interested, you've talked about a number of things that when you go to dark periods that you have used, that have taken you to dark places, whether that be self-harming, overeating, and suicidal thoughts. Is it possible to nail for good? We can take them in turn if you want. Self-harming. Can you be confident that?
Yeah, I won't go about there. That's absolutely nailed.
Suicidal thoughts.
I'm fairly confident with that one. I haven't had them since the last time I self-harmed. So that's 2019. So that's a long time ago. And I'm feeling very confident that won't come back, because I've got those kids, and I look at my daughter, I look at my son, and how unfair on them to one day be told why I wasn't around. Children need their father as much as they need their mother. I have a social responsibility and a moral responsibility and parental responsibility to be there for my children, the good, the bad, the ugly. And so that's my absolute drive and determination.
What about overeating?
No, I've got a real problem with food. I don't know how to crack that nut. That's one of the things I'm working on right now, is we're trying to figure out where that comes from. I think it's related to self-worth, self-loathing. My therapist always used to say, Chris tells me I need to be kinder to myself.
You really
just
do.
Need to be kinder to myself. But
you're very impressive.
I find that hard. I find that hard. I don't want to be like, I just worry about, don't want to look like an arrogant so-and-so. And I have worked hard to get where I got to. Yeah, I went to a really good school. I had a
state school.
I went to a private school,
okay.
First in my family. I had every advantage my mum and dad didn't have. We didn't go on the big fancy holidays. They poured their money into sending me to that school to make sure I had everything going for me. So my dad failed his O-levels and went back to that school to be a cleaner during the day, and then he did night school. He's my inspiration. He went through, then he did, I think he worked as a receptionist at the council to do his night school for A-levels. And then he ended up doing Open University, which changed his life. And then my mum was on a council estate in London, got into grammar school. So, I've seen the power of education, and that's why my parents were like, you're going to knuckle down and get your grades, and, you're going to have everything we didn't have in terms of the starts in life, and then you need to make the most of it.
Do you think bullying in private school... I was so obsessed with researching your mental health that I didn't actually know that you'd been to private school. Do you think it's more... do you think bullying is more of an issue? Were you a boarder? Did you board?
No, I didn't board, no.
Right, okay.
I was only threatened with it if I didn't behave.
Right,
my mum threatened me then, but yeah.
Do you think there are cultural issues do you think it was anything to do with the nature of your school which amplified the situation with bullying?
I don't think it matters whether you're in a private school or a state school. I'd spent 8.5 years, being a teacher, and I was a head of year during that time as well. So I dealt with the behaviour, attendance and safeguarding of kids in 2 or 3 of the schools I worked in. Social media nowadays is the worst, and the bullying that takes place on social media is horrific and horrifying, and parents are stuck because they come to us as a school, but obviously this is happening outside of school hours on a platform that we have no control over. This idea of how to look perfect, this over-sexualisation of children is terrifying, and the access that these young boys, are able to get, to websites that they shouldn't be able to access, the websites that exist where they're basically coercing people in how to take their own life. I've actually had that case in my own constituency. I'm raising it about the Online Harms Bill because people who host these websites should be held criminally accountable. They're literally advising people on how to commit suicide. And there's streams of families out there scarred knowing that these websites exist, but also not knowing how to prevent those websites from being accessed, whether you're a young person or an adult. So we have to really look at this Online Harms Bill, for example, as a way to really start creating accountability in the system.
You're quite young, so...
Yeah, I'm 32 despite the hairline.
32, so...
My dad gave me this hairline, I blame him for it.
Did you ever look at any of those websites?
I don't remember, no, not being able to access it. I mean, my stepdad's a computer programmer, but I'm about as computer literate as as an orangutan, I think.
Good.
So
good in this
yeah,
instance.
I know. So it's quite a shame I never actually learned about technology, but properly. But yeah, no, I've never come across those myself. I just think the web, the internet, has just developed so fast, so quickly. I remember when the first phone came out with a camera on it, and it was like mind-boggling. I remember MySpace before Facebook, and when you tell kids MySpace was a thing, they just look at you like you're...
Friends Reunited, if you're really old, you'll remember that.
Friends Reunited, yeah.
I think the mental health of MPs, I don't think it's that good. Generally, it's obviously a massive generalisation, but I think there's quite a lot of ill mental health in Parliament. Do you ever talk to... would that be a safe space to open up to your colleagues? Is it getting easier?
I think it's definitely becoming easier as more and more people are being more open, and it was one of the things that I felt, by coming forward. I remember hearing Stuart Anderson give a really emotional speech in the House about his attempts at suicide, suffering from obviously his days when he was in the military, and it was the most heartbreaking but also one of the most open speeches I've ever seen in that House. And I was in the constituency, I watched it on my phone, I saw social media was saying, oh, this is amazing, and I tuned in and sort of watched it back, and it was incredibly powerful. And I thought, if Stuart can do it, then if I do it, then more people hopefully will open up. But you are right, that it's you know, the hours can be difficult because obviously that puts pressure on family. You know, I take my daughter to nursery on a Monday, on a Thursday and a Friday, but I can't necessarily pick up because I have constituency events. On a Saturday, I'm having to balance between being out and about, campaigning or door knocking, but also taking my daughter to dance, looking after William, who's only 3 months, my partner actually having a life herself and being able to get out of the house. I think that is a real challenge out there for people, for members of Parliament. I don't think we're special. I think there's a lot of stresses and strains in any jobs. I mean, doctors, nurses, you know, teachers, police, fire, throughout this pandemic, I mean, doing 12-hour plus shifts with all the pressures on them. I don't think that we're some sort of special breed that need any more special looking after than anyone else. But I do think MPs, we probably need to be a bit more honest about when we're struggling and not seeing that as something that's going to hold us back from greater office, whether that be the Prime Minister, the Chancellor or a Secretary of State. Actually, it means you're human and you're like everyone else, and you should be proud of that.
Thank you. I want to shake your hand.
No,
I want to give you a hug, but,
No, thank you.
we're English, so we'll stick with a handshake. Thank you.
No, thank you very much. Thank you
so much.
If you are affected by the issues raised in this interview, do reach out for help. The Samaritans can be contacted on 116 123 or by email at joe@samaritans.org. You can watch my Real Me interviews on our YouTube channel or catch them on the Real Me podcast. Listen wherever you get your podcast from, just search for GB News. Liam is with me now. Liam, On the Money's coming up. What's on it?
We're talking about, Gloria, the £100 gallon of fuel. If you're a car driver, a van driver in particular, even filling up an average diesel 55-litre tanked saloon car now costs over £100, given the increase in petrol and diesel prices in recent weeks. There's probably more to come because oil prices are going up. So what we're doing in On the Money for the next hour is we're calling on Rishi Sunak to finally scrap the VAT on those fuel bills, not just for motorists, but also for household utilities. We think it would really help to put money back in the pockets of hard-pressed households and businesses. And that's what we're about here on GB News.
Absolutely. Cheers, Liam. You've been watching or listening to The Briefing with me, Gloria De Piero. I'm back every Monday to Thursday from noon. Up next, it is On the Money with Liam Halligan. Stay with us for On the Money. But first, it is your weather. Thank you.
Hello, Alex Deakin here with your latest weather updates. It's another day of heavy showers, particularly across eastern parts of England, southeast Scotland. There's some spots seeing some sunny spells, but it's on the cool side. High pressure is nearby, but low pressure is sitting right over us, allowing the air to rush up through the skies and create the heavy showers. Not many isobars on the chart, so again the winds are light, so again the showers are slow moving. Heavy ones particularly across the borders of Scotland, down into northeast England, down towards Lincolnshire. Some thunderstorms likely in this zone, but heavy showers elsewhere as well. Not many for South Wales and southwest England. Here, many places having a dry, fine afternoon with sunny spells, and here we could get to 17 or 18, but generally temperatures only in the mid-teens. A lot of cloud for Northern Ireland, turning quite damp here through the rest of the day, and that wet weather will then march its way slowly towards parts of Wales and northwest England overnight. The heavy showers in eastern areas will continue well into the evening before tending to fizzle out in most places as we head towards dawn. And again, it's not going to be a warm day, so overnight with clear skies it's going to be quite chilly with temperatures well down into single figures. Another fresh start then on Wednesday. Some sunshine around early on, but this zone of cloud and showers over the Midlands, northwest England will work again to the east. So by the afternoon, it will once more be eastern parts of England that see a lot of heavy showers. A drier day for Scotland and Northern Ireland. And again, not many showers for Wales and southwest England. So many western areas largely dry tomorrow with some sunny spells. But again, in the east, there will be showers. And again, they will be on the heavy side, and temperatures in most places only in the mid-teens. The showers will fade somewhat through Wednesday evening, which leads into things turning a bit drier as we head towards the long weekend. Drier and with some sunshine, a bit warmer, not completely free from showers, however.
Join us for a special GB News event.
The celebration of the Queen's Platinum Jubilee.
From pageantry here at the Palace
to the parties in your street.
We'll bring you 4 days of
unforgettable moments.
This bank holiday weekend.
Join us live up and down the country as we share your memories
of Her Majesty's extraordinary reign.
Send us your stories, photographs and videos
at jubilee@gbnews.uk.
Come and celebrate with us
on GB News, the People's Channel.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV,
on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.